the need for this sort of private communities and social platforms, especially in Europe, is becoming critical.
If you're not catering to it, if you're not providing a superior WordPress experience, it may be the last WordPress experience that they're having.
We need our data privacy. We can't afford to have Facebook owning our data.
If something were to happen on Facebook, God forbid, they could lose their entire community. Welcome to Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. I am your host, Jesse Friedman. Before we dive in, remember to check out impressive.host. It's where you can comment on episodes, ask follow-up questions, and submit questions for upcoming guests. You'll also find all the links to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you listen. With me today is Wes Tatters, the Managing Director of Rapyd Cloud. I wanted to have Wes on because he is working on a hosting platform that is specializing in speed, performance, solving some really great problems in the WordPress community, keeping people within the WordPress ecosystem. Wes, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing
Jesse.
today?
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit about where you are, what you're working on. You've been at, you just got back from WordCamp Europe?
It's been a busy couple of weeks. I just got back from WordCamp Europe, another amazing WordCamp event. Great to catch up with a lot of people in the community and talk about things like Fire for the Future and what contribution looks like and those sort of things in the WordPress space, but also talk to people about hosting in general. I'm very active in the Make community and a part of the Make hosting team. We had some very good discussions with the Make team at WordCamp Europe. Around hosting and our test runner project that we've been working on for some time, bringing it into a new version in that area. But also, yes, as I said, I'm at Rapyd Cloud. We're a WordPress managed hosting platform for WordPress, specifically focused on WordPress sites that have become successful. They've gone beyond the blogging experience. They've often gone beyond the traditional WooCommerce experience, and stepping into places like membership sites, e-learning platforms, those sort of things that do tend to stress a WordPress hosting.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So when you talk about a website that's, successful, that can mean a lot to, many different people. I would imagine, though, that there's some baseline there around traffic, or around the amount of bandwidth you're getting, or rather how much people are coming to your site, things like that. So tell us a little bit about how you maybe look at a site that might be a good candidate for your platform.
The main metric that I think we're focused on is concurrency. A lot of our sites are sites like a MemberPress site, or a BuddyBoss site, Buddy Press sites, even older BB press sites, where it's not one person logging on to look at a blog. It's not one person, coming into a sales funnel in a WooCommerce site where they hit the sales funnel. Our objective is to get them in and get them out as fast as we can. Of course, if we can't get them to the checkout box in a couple of minutes, we've got a conversion problem. If we take a BuddyBoss site, for example, and I have a long history with BuddyBoss. I was a BuddyBoss customer for a number of years. Have about 250 customers in an agency that we help with BuddyBoss sites, and also worked with BuddyBoss designing Rapyd Cloud. The reason Rapyd came into existence is BuddyBoss effectively created the problem we're trying to solve. BuddyBoss sites, even with a small number of users, they might only have 500 or 1,000 users, but those 500 or 1,000 users could all choose to be online at 7 a.m. tonight to have a conversation, or to share a yoga class together, or some other sort of activity. The other thing about them is they are very sticky. Unlike a blog where comes and reads your blog, or comes to your WooCommerce site and buys a product, these people can be coming back to your site 2, 3, and 4 times a day because they're looking for a conversation. BuddyBoss also has an app product, so a React Native app in app stores, which does what apps do: sends notifications. Hey, XYZ just asked a question in, your group. It's pulling people back. So people are very sticky. They can be back in a site quite a lot. And that leads to high concurrency at levels that, again, traditional WordPress sites don't have. Um, the other component of that is sites like LearnDash sites. LearnDash sites could have a person on the site interacting continually for hours. They could be doing an 8-hour course in LearnDash where they're watching videos, they're answering questions, doing quizzes. Every one of those clicks, likes, checks, comments is a page request, effectively back to that WordPress site. And traditional hosting struggles in that space. And it's because it's just not optimized for that sort of utilization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for everyone at home, BuddyBoss is a WordPress powered community plugin, so that it's very much like a next level of what's the other one?
BuddyPress. Yeah.
Press, right? Yeah. So BuddyBoss it creates basically a social media community on a WordPress instance. So you're getting both concurrent users, but you're also getting users who are looking at the front end of the site, but also maybe editing their profile and doing things that might be considered, back end stuff as well. LearnDash is a LMS, right? So it's made for building educational system, teaching classes, all that stuff. And I can imagine that, yeah. And at any moment, either one of those platforms, you could release something, whether it's a new post on a community and an important member of that community releases something. All of a sudden, you have a swarming of people coming in, interacting, leaving comments, all of which are making database requests and saving things and all that. And then on LearnDash, maybe you release a new course or something like that, or you have all these students starting in a season, in an academic season.
BuddyBoss took that one step further because it partnered with LearnDash, and when LearnDash is a native part of the BuddyBoss theme and experience, and also a native part of the BuddyBoss app. So you can actually run a LearnDash course on an Android or Apple phone natively in React Native from the App Store. And again, it creates those sticky experiences, which are what people kind of forget. We talk about things like visits and page views in WordPress. Every time hits a like, if someone hits goes, oh, I've read 5 comments and gone like. It's just generated the equivalent of 5 traditional WordPress page requests. They're AJAX or REST requests, but they still go through the exact same workflow, the exact same work cycle as any other page request. It loads all the plugins in, it loads all the data in, and the response is 1 or true or 0, but it's still done the same things inside WordPress.
Well, it's interesting too, because if you think about it from a user experience standpoint, it's actually far easier for the visitor of the site to leave a like than it is to leave a comment. So they could go through and just keep hitting like. I don't know if they have like up or down voting like in Reddit or something like that. But I would imagine that can be incredibly taxing. Yeah.
And especially one of the things that we discovered when we went into the app space is that the way people consume apps is different to how they consume a web page. If you think about a web page, page loads, and we'll scroll down and we'll read through it. In an app, we're swiping and just flicking and swiping and moving and all that, and people just want to go zoom, zoom, zoom. They want to swipe 3 times across the thing they want, and so the poor old WordPress web server, because it still is a WordPress, PHP server is sitting underneath it going,
yeah, sure,
all the time. So yeah, the level of stress that these sort of sites can put on a traditional hosting platform is quite high. But to link that back to success, these sites are also very commercially viable. Even a small MemberPress site or a small, BuddyBoss site might have 1,000 members who are paying $5 or $10 a month to be a member. So they've actually got revenues. It might be LearnDash courses where they've got $300 and $400 LearnDash courses, and they're starting cohorts for 100 people on a Monday morning. So in terms of success, they're at a point where they have revenue, they have commercial viability, and they're now saying, my customers are complaining about performance, or my customers are complaining about responsiveness. We had a we had a viral event last night, or and our customers were complaining. Unfortunately, what's happening in a lot of these spaces is that these customers reach a point where they go, "It's BuddyBoss. Sorry, it's the WordPress hosting experience. It's BuddyBoss as a plugin, or it's LearnDash not performant enough." Um, and they're trying to run it on GoDaddy or a shared host, or which was never designed for that, sort of thing. So they start looking at other platforms. They start looking at SaaS models. If it's a WooCommerce platform with high load, they're looking at Shopify. They're looking at Teachific if they're looking at LearnDash, or Circle.io or Mighty Networks in the community spaces. Um, and where we've reached is a point where we have the ability to step in on those customers at the point where they're in that journey, or that point of exploration where they're saying, is WordPress right for us? And we've successfully managed to
Yeah.
retain a lot of those customers in the WordPress space. We've got some.
I love that. That's like really noble work, not just for your business, but for
Yeah.
the ecosystem. And I want to dive into that, but real quick, because we're on the same topic, I just want to ask you, when we think about this podcast as a whole, one of the things that we're very focused on is at the end of it, we want to be able to say these are the core tenets of what makes a great WordPress host. And one recurring theme that comes up over and over again is the host aligning themselves with the success of their
100%.
customers. And so, you can look at other hosting companies who may be very focused on acquisition, just trying to get the customer in, get them paying. They understand their churn numbers, their attrition rates. They know what they're gonna get, and so they'll run X number of ads just to acquire X number of customers, not necessarily thinking about the long-term vision of what that means for that customer. And I think that's to the detriment of the WordPress ecosystem, because you're creating maybe the first WordPress experience for that customer. And if you're not catering to it, if you're not providing a superior WordPress experience, it may be the
Yes.
last WordPress experience that they're having. And so they end up going somewhere else. So I love that, you're saying that Rapyd Cloud is identifying customers who who have some layer of success, are running into these concurrency issues and other things, and you're coming in and solving for that specific problem. So I'm curious, like, it sounds like you started touching on it real quick, but you didn't dive into it. BuddyBoss kind of designed a problem. It
Created a
sounds
problem.
like,
No,
or
literally,
didn't design a problem, but they
literally
created
a
a problem, and you
Yeah.
designed a
So
solution. And yeah, so how did that come to
Rapyd,
bear?
So BuddyBoss. I was a BuddyBoss customer. I literally had a BuddyBoss
Okay.
agency helping people with this problem. Tom and Mike, the founders of BuddyBoss, approached me and said, "Hey, you're you're solving a problem for our customers. Uh, can we work closer?" And we spent a lot of time working together, looking at what it looked like. Um, Rapyd was originally going to just be called BuddyBoss Hosted, a SaaS model product. So one click, install BuddyBoss, get the hosting experience that you needed for your product. But the further we went into the space, obviously BuddyBoss has a direct relationship with LearnDash and Tutor LMS, and Lifter LMS. And as we were talking with these platforms, we're getting the same message. I was talking at WordCamp Europe this week, or last week, with the Crocker-Block team. All the Jet suite of plugins, specifically designed for highly dynamic WordPress sites, and they have exactly the same problem. Um, and they're going, yeah, and our products are really great when you've got one person on the site, but the moment load comes on, we have customers who are experiencing exactly those same problems. Concurrency, and just with dynamic, I mean, the traditional WordPress host, the race to the bottom model, let's get it as cheap as we can. The way we achieve a performance metric for those is by page caching. Um, we stick them on a cloud edge cache, we page cache everything we can. And for 99% of those small blogging sites where a user is never logging on, page caching works really, really well. But the moment you've got a customer who has to log in, or even a customer that just is trying to get through a checkout, you start to see cracks in the traditional model.
Sure, that dynamic content can wreak havoc
Yeah,
on
it
all
does. So
caching.
you're
Yeah.
basically no more
Yeah.
caching. The moment you've got dynamics on the page, and what's a WooCommerce checkout? An entirely dynamic experience. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not even the checkout, right? It's like it's building the cart. And then if you have
Mm.
that kind of slide in window where the cart exists in every
Or
single page, you're creating dynamic content on
things
every
like
single
upsell
page.
tools, and hey, you've just selected these three products. Have you considered these products? Or you're in the checkout and you're trying
Right.
to do that last minute. Did you also want this?
Yeah. And as much as I love personalization, it's a big thing for me. I think that, more websites should be more personal to what people need. The second you start doing that too, you're creating a lot of dynamic content. And that's going to be heavily present in something like BuddyBoss, where you probably have like profile information and different things like that, like based on who you are, whether you're logged in, your
Well,
state,
yeah,
all
but
that.
it's just groups, it's forums, it's
Yeah.
chat rooms, it's live chat, it's live
Sure.
messaging, it's all that stuff. Look, but the best way to describe BuddyBoss is Facebook. It's doing all the same stuff. It's got all the
Right.
same features and got all the same tools, being squeezed into a space. And people go, well, why would they do it? And there is a real reason for it. In 2025, especially in places in Europe, data security, data privacy, and data ownership is becoming one of the highest metrics. Um, we've just spent the last 6 months doing SOC 2 and ISO 27001 certification for our platform. Um, and we're completing HIPAA and GDPR. These are the security level certifications that sort of uh, high end sites want hosting are being asked for by these successful customers. They're going, well, hey, our data is we need our data privacy. We can't afford to have Facebook owning our data. They don't want Teachific owning their data or Circle or Mining Networks. They want their data to be private and secure. Some of our BuddyBoss communities are incredibly sensitive, and we know that because we work closely with them. They're having discussions in their communities about topics that they don't want public, for privacy
Sure.
reasons and personal reasons and a lot of other areas. So, um, the need for this sort of private communities and social platforms, especially in Europe, is becoming critical as we go forward into 2025.
I would even take it a step further than just purely privacy too. There's some one thing that we continue to talk about is that this concept of owning your influence. If you're building a business and you're considering building a community on Facebook or something like that, you can invest. Imagine building these people are taking the time to
Yes.
build and invest in a social platform that they own and operate. So in order for them to have decided I'm going to use Facebook or I'm going to use Instagram instead, they're going to have to make a major
Yeah,
investment inside of Facebook. And that's built on top of an algorithm that makes no
exactly.
promises to them, that can the rug can be ripped out from under them at any moment. It's not built on an open web platform like WordPress, where they actually
Yep,
own the relationship with their
exactly.
end community members. And so if something were to happen on Facebook, God forbid, like they could lose their entire community. But not only that, like would they even be able to
Nope.
communicate with their members and say, hey, we've now set up this new thing,
Yeah.
come over here? And I don't think that people necessarily understand the
Sure.
fragile
It,
relationship
it,
that they
it,
have with
it's
social media
delicate,
platforms.
and you can't monetize it in any way, shape, or form. I've talked to people who've been running stupidly large groups in Facebook. Oh, we've got 50,000 people, and it's a full-time job keeping them all happy. And I'm
Yeah,
going, so how do you make money out of
sure.
it? And it's like, well, I can't. Um, so that's what they're looking
Right.
at.
Right. They got to sell merch or do something like that and drive people to a store. But even then, Facebook doesn't want
Exactly.
those customers or those members leaving their platform anyway, which is where things get even more interesting. I mean, now you look at like Instagram having its own e-commerce platform. It
Yeah.
makes me nervous because I think it's going to draw in a lot more people who think that it's going to be a platform that's going to help them to grow their business. And it may have very quick, immediate results that happen very, in the earliest stages. But I am worried about the long term effects of what that means building and consolidating more of the internet onto these walled gardens like Facebook or Instagram. So yeah, I think it's really great that you're working on this specific problem for those folks. And then you talked about data security and privacy. Um, I'm curious, when you are talking to Like, are you like advertising to people who are currently running a Facebook group? Like, are you like, how are you promoting your product as something that can solve for these problems that we just discussed around owning your influence and things like that? Like, are
Okay.
people coming to you, or are you doing a
We've
lot of outreach and going to communities and saying like, hey, we can help you do this
Because we grew out of
yourself?
BuddyBoss, our first audience base is BuddyBoss. BuddyBoss has some 35,000 customers out there and some 3,500 to 4,000 app customers. A lot of those are coming towards us now. Now that we're out of beta and we're a public product, but we've spent the last 6 months doing a lot of visibility marketing, being at WordCamps, being in public spaces and talking and communicating with people about this conversation. Um, and in every case, what we seem to have, I was talking with Chris from uh, Lifter on his podcast a couple of months back, and we're chatting. And by the end of the podcast, he's going, um, "Okay, yeah, we need to have another conversation about this after our podcast because you're telling me the same problems that my customers are telling me." And so that's where we're developing a lot of those relationships. Yes, we're doing some outreach, but a lot of it, I would say probably 90% of our customers are inbounding to us going, help us. We have a problem. Or they're
Right.
agency customers coming to us going, we've got customers that aren't fitting within our traditional agency model or our traditional agency recommendations. Uh, and we're developing some good relationships with some agencies. We're not looking to be an agency's hosting platform, but we're certainly looking because we're not interested in their $5 customers. Because that's not our hosting model. But we're
Right. Okay.
very interested in being able to
Yeah. Yeah.
professionally and reliably service their customers with problems, customers with challenges, and customers with concerns about the viability of WordPress. We thought about the
Yeah.
whole product very, very differently. One of the key aspects of what we do is security, and for us, security shouldn't be an afterthought. So you don't install a plugin on your platform for WordPress for security. We install a product in the server that is a malware product that is there when you turn it on. The, we've had customers who've literally gone and deploy their site, migrate their platform, and gone. The malware services are reporting that I've got vulnerabilities, and it's like, yes, you have. Congratulations, you brought them with you. But how long have they been there? Would have been for some time. But between PatchStack and Monarchs, the platforms that we utilize, that's where we start thinking about things like security. We start thinking about things like data sensitivity and data security. Uh, we start looking at how we manage data for customers. You know, using object caching tools like Object Cache Pro and Relay to improve database performance. Using tools like PatchStack to minimize plugin vulnerabilities before they become real. Active edge caching at cloud levels, active WAFs in the cloud, active WAF and security tools all the way through the platform. Um, Too many people arrive in the WordPress space, install a $5 hosting, and don't know about any of that stuff, um, and don't even realize they need half of it.
So one of the things that I work on very heavily at WP Cloud is making sure that the core security components that we need to be able to run a secure website are included
Okay.
by default. So we have, DDoS protection, WAF, malicious file scanning, the list goes on from there, backups, all of that stuff. And so all of that's built into WP Cloud
Exactly.
by default so that the hosting company that partners with us
Hmm.
gets that and they don't have to think about selling it as an add-on. I think as you start to go down in the funnel and you start to sell things for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, as a company who's trying to make profit, you're starting to pull away some of the things that
Yeah,
cost you
exactly.
money. Backups, for example, are expensive because they have storage requirements, and that can get expensive quickly. So you start to peel off these layers of saying, like, how do you balance security and things like that with making sure that it's profitable? And I think that's where one of the dangers around the race to the bottom of pricing starts to unveil itself is that you're starting to make decisions around things that should be included with every single WordPress website, and you're not. And then what does it end up doing in the end? It probably increases your cost to serve because those customers are going to have a problem. They're going to have to call support. They're not going to have a very quick solution for that problem. So I'm curious. So with your customers, like, how are you deciding what layers of security? Are you just kind of going all out and doing everything? Or are you keeping some things in reserve and thinking to yourself, like, only some subset of customers will actually need this, so I'll charge for that part? How do you make a decision around security and what to sell
Yep.
and what to
One of
bundle?
the I mentioned before that we've been involved in the certification processes for things like ISO 27001, which is the international standard for hosting security, I guess. SOC 2, which is the American version. HIPAA, which is the health and data privacy version, obviously GDPR. And SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR all have rather stringent requirements around data security, um, from encryption on disk to continuous or at least regular malware and scanning and monitoring. So they kind of speak to us as a hosting company about our minimum levels of viability. Um, and that was where we started. So, as I said, we use a product called Monarchs, which is a server level malware detection RASP tool that sits in the server and looks into PHP and actually watches what it's doing in real time. We have
Yeah.
various layers of WAF at Cloud Edge in the server area itself. And we also work with the PatchStack team a lot with their vulnerability tool.
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
Oliver on the show
I
a
think
couple weeks ago,
one of the
actually. Yeah, yeah.
biggest we're still growing, but we had 135,000 vulnerability blocks this month from out of date plugins and out of date
Yeah.
themes, out of date WordPress stacks. Um, and some of our customers are part of the challenge of dynamic sites is actually that in the traditional model, people just turn on automatic plugin updates or turn on, automatic, you know, uh, sort of WordPress updates. In a dynamic site running
Yeah.
BuddyBoss or Tutor or Lifter, they can't afford that. They cannot afford to wake up in the morning and find that the new update of insert name and plugin just took their platform offline. Um, or their new update of WordPress just took their platform offline. Because they've got big complex plugins. Elementor, probably 80 or 90% of our customers use Elementor because it's the underlying theme partner with BuddyBoss. BuddyBoss built their own Elementor widgets and dashboard components. Now, Elementor, with its complexity, often has changes that happen between different plugin releases. So it's a requirement of our customers that they effectively make a staging site, update all the plugins, do all that testing, do all that checking and validation. But for some, for a lot of them, it's still a side gig. They may only be able to do that on a weekend, or they might only be able to fit it in once a month. Without a tool
Yeah.
like,
It's
yeah,
always a tough conversation to have because you don't want to speak poorly or illy of the
and
WordPress
it's not
community,
about the
right? Because
community.
one of the most amazing things about WordPress is that it's
Yeah,
so extensible and that there are so many people committing and helping and giving back. But there is a real reality to the fact that not everyone has a development team
yeah,
or a support team like someone like, or
yeah.
Jetpack or Yoast or others that have like these large teams behind it. And so you might have, you're right, like an agency who might say, I want to give this
Yeah.
code back to the community.
But
And so then they run an
and some
update and they don't have the time to test it against
can't.
everything.
And respectfully,
Right.
even to the really big plugins, we have Elementor slash WooCommerce took out thousands and thousands of site with a vulnerability. In April, I think 2023. I think it was the Bricks theme took out thousands and thousands of customers with a vulnerability. Because things happen. Um, when you
Yeah, sure.
when you partner with a product like PatchStack on top, it at least provides that extra layer of protection because unfortunately for a lot of those customers that were attacked, and the reason we've gone intimate know about that one is a number of BuddyBoss customers were in the same boat, is that PatchStack identified a vulnerability, it shared it with Elementor, Elementor addressed the vulnerability, released plugin updates and patches, but because of that lag on complex sites between when the patch goes up and when they can get around to making sure that it's safe to push out, I think it was like the Tuesday the patch went out. Friday the vulnerability hit and was sent redirecting people to gaming online gaming houses in Central Europe, and most of those people hadn't got to their Saturday when they were doing their plugin updates yet. The ones that had a tool.
So I think that's really is really interesting, because when you think about it from a host's responsibility, if you're talking to a hosting company that has shared hosting customers who are not necessarily running these types of complex sites, these large, what we call successful sites in this episode, I would say the host probably does have a responsibility to try and at least be opinionated about having updates on and pushing those things. But then at the same time, when you are working as you are with your customers, you could probably step aside and say, hey, we're not going to force these updates immediately. We're going to give you a chance to test them and make sure that everything's going to work well. How do you balance that, though, to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where, like, a year from now, you have, hundreds of thousands of plugins that are out of date by several versions?
That's why we rely on PatchStack. PatchStack is handling that vulnerability wall for us. If our customers have PatchStack installed, we are comfortable that at least
But even more than the vulnerabilities, like, how do you make sure that, like, you give them a window to, like, test it? Like, maybe it's not a security issue, but maybe it's a design issue, or something has changed in the way in which the API works.
And it's regular. The layout, there's layout difference, or just something has changed which doesn't work anymore the way they expected it. We are opinionated, but BuddyBoss has always had a policy that people don't do automatic updates in their platform. And that was just because of the complexity of the platform, and also tied to things like BuddyBoss app. The whole app workflow is around, you can update the plugin, but you've now then got to go to your app store or submit build a new build of the app, submit that, go through the app build cycle, and that can take weeks. You can post an update to Apple one day and it goes through in 3 hours, and you might post an update to Android next time and it gets blocked because someone in that particular assessment group decided they've got an issue with something that they didn't have an issue with yesterday. So there's a big lag when in these big complicated sites. How opinionated can you get on forcing updates? For us, that's a challenge. We monitor plugin versioning. We monitor in real time because we have tools like PatchStack that literally are looking inside we know the versions of every plugin. If customers reach past a certain level, we actually rely on our customer success team a lot, who will use this as a community relationship tool, and we'll reach out to customers. And it's as simple as an email. Hey, we've identified within your stack that these 3 plugins are currently vulnerable. They are being protected by virtual patching from, in this case, PatchStacks, or Monarchs is doing something and blocking, or the WAF at Cloud is catching all that. But we will reach out and talk to them about it. But because of the nature of these sites, these are dynamic real-time sites. We can't even touch their servers. We can't reboot them. We can't force a reboot on a server because those dynamic sites might have something running. There might be a background task or a process that are running. A lot of these sites use tools like WP Fusion that are linking and integrating their sites with things like Active Campaigns and HubSpot and Fluent CRM, all those sorts of tools where they the sites are running mission critical. It's very unlike a traditional WordPress site, which if the site's down for a minute, statistically there was only one person there anyway. But in these dynamic sites, you'd have to plan you basically have a window.
I like that, though, that you're using that as an opportunity to connect with your customers and create a delightful experience. I think that's really great. Listen, this was such a great conversation. Can we continue it in a part 2? Because I got John, my producer here, telling us that we got to take a break here. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Does that sound good? All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Wes, for joining us, and see you soon. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.